Okay, so there's lots of consequences of creating and destroying money through bank loans. It means every euro has a corresponding debt, basically, and that does have serious consequences for us. So I would say this is a system unfit for purpose, really. When you bear in mind that money is supposed to be a helpful thing that allows us to trade, it is unfit for purpose in that sense. We have an incredible productive capacity, really, and we have people who put in the work, they do their 9 to 5 and so on, and we can't really ask much more of them. But lots of people just can't afford the products that we might otherwise be able to afford if we had a more sensible monetary system. So we just can't enjoy the fruits of our own labour, essentially. I would say the debt crisis is caused by this system. I know that might be quite a sweeping statement, but to create every euro with an even higher debt, it's absolutely no surprise that we've ended up with an over-indebted economy. Bear in mind, reducing our debts doesn't help as well because, of course, the money just doesn't exist anymore once you do that. Unaffordable housing and the mortgage arrears problem. So, unaffordable housing, first of all. When a bank is deciding what project to create money for, it's incentivized to create money for a project that involves a real-world asset. So, the housing market, for example, or the construction market. So that's really the essence of the housing boom and the construction bubble and so on. Banks are less concerned about creating money for a project that involves an increase in something that might contribute to GDP, for example. The mortgage arrears problem is definitely caused by this system because you have to bear in mind that banks only create the principal of the loan, they expect the principal plus interest. So at any one moment, we actually owe more to banks than exists. Now, I just want to be careful here. It is just about mathematically possible for all loans to be repaid for a couple of reasons. The accountancy is complicated, so I won't attempt to explain it, but when you repay a loan to bank, they effectively delete the principal of the loan and they record whatever interest you've repaid them as profit, and ultimately they pay your staff or whatever. Ultimately, that money ends up back in circulation. So if all loans are repaid slowly enough, it is just about mathematically possible for all loans to go according to plan. Now, in practice, it's not, because as people concentrate on repaying their loans, everybody's bank balance tends towards zero. So obviously, long before it gets to that point, somebody's going to default on a loan. And ultimately, it's just not possible for all mortgages to be repaid under this system. We certainly pay higher taxes than we otherwise might, because when the central bank prints cash, again, the accountancy is pretty complicated, but the effect is that it becomes a source of non-tax revenue for the Department of Finance. Now, back in the 60s, for example, 20% of the money supply existed as cash, and 80% existed as money on the ledgers of the banking system. So this 20% cash was a hugely significant source of non-tax revenue for the government. Now, that 20% has dwindled down to 3% today, and that's ultimately the reason why the government's in a position where it's trying to invent new taxes or raise existing taxes. Unemployment, well, this is caused by lots of different factors, but at the same time, we do have people willing to work, and we do have work to be done. Generally, it's just a lack of a medium of exchange to bring everything together. So this unemployment can be traced back to this system. Environmental damage, so there's a number of different factors. I think the main one, I won't go into too much detail, would just be planned obsolescence. So under this system, whereby every euro has even higher debt, it's just not feasible to run a company without having a constant income stream a matter of months down the line. So companies do plan for their products to become obsolete in a matter of months or require an update or whatever it is. Whereas that was never so much the case in yesteryear, and this does have environmental consequences. Many of our social problems can be traced to the fact that every euro is created with a corresponding debt and deleted then as debts are repaid. A lack of money can be the source of a lot of our social problems.